Have you ever noticed that the loudest battles are not happening outside of you, but inside your own mind? One minute you feel motivated. The next minute you feel overwhelmed. Your thoughts pull you in different directions. Fear whispers. Doubt screams. Regret keeps replaying old memories. Anxiety keeps inventing problems that haven't even happened yet. And slowly, your peace disappears. But the Stoics believed something powerful. They believed that a calm mind is the greatest weapon a human being can possess. Not money. Not status. Not revenge. Not approval. A clear mind. Because when your mind is clear, nobody can manipulate your emotions. Nobody can control your peace. And life stops feeling like chaos. So in this video, we're going deep into the Stoic mindset that helps you clear your mind, regain control of your emotions, and protect your inner peace in a noisy world. And if you want more powerful videos on Stoicism, self-control, discipline, and mental strength, subscribe to the channel and join this journey toward becoming unshakable. Now listen carefully. Most people are mentally exhausted not because life is hard, but because their minds never rest. They overthink conversations. Replay mistakes. Worry about tomorrow. Compare themselves to others. Seek validation from people who don't even value them. Their body may be sitting still, but their mind is running a marathon. The Stoics warned about this thousands of years ago. They understood that an uncontrolled mind becomes your prison. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every single day. At first, you barely notice it. But over time, it destroys your energy. That backpack is mental clutter. Old pain. Anger. Jealousy. Fear. Endless noise. And most people never put it down. There's a story about a young man who went to an old Stoic teacher and said, "My mind is always restless. I cannot stop thinking. I cannot find peace." The teacher handed him a glass of muddy water and told him to hold it. The young man stood there waiting. Minutes passed. Slowly, the dirt settled to the bottom. The water became clear. The teacher smiled and said, "Your mind works the same way. Stop shaking it constantly." That is the problem today. People never allow their minds to settle. The phone keeps buzzing. The world keeps shouting. Social media keeps demanding attention. And silence has become uncomfortable. But silence is where clarity lives. The Stoics practiced silence because they knew something most people ignore. If you cannot sit alone with your thoughts, your mind controls you. A clear mind begins when you stop feeding unnecessary noise. Think about how much energy people waste every day on things they cannot control. Someone talks badly about them. They lose sleep over it. Someone posts a better lifestyle online. They feel insecure. A stranger disagrees with them. They become angry for hours. But Stoicism teaches a brutal truth. If it is outside your control, it should not control your peace. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor, ruled an empire filled with war, betrayal, and pressure. Yet he constantly reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Think about that. Not outside events. Your mind. That means peace is not found by controlling the world. Peace is found by controlling your reaction to the world. There was once a merchant whose business collapsed overnight. His friends panicked for him. People expected him to break down. But instead, he calmly said, "I lost money, not my mind." That is Stoicism. Most people lose themselves the moment life becomes difficult. Stoics lose things, without losing their inner stability. And that mindset changes everything. Because when your mind is clear, problems become easier to solve. Panic disappears. Emotion stops blinding judgment. Fear loses power. A calm mind sees solutions. A chaotic mind sees disaster. This is why Stoics train themselves daily. Not to avoid problems, but to become stronger than them. One Stoic practice that can completely transform your life is separating facts from emotions. Here's what most people do. Something bad happens. Immediately, their emotions create a story. I failed, so I'm worthless. They ignored me, so they hate me. I made a mistake, so my future is ruined. But the Stoics taught that events themselves are neutral. Your interpretation creates suffering. Imagine two people caught in heavy rain. One person complains all day. This ruined everything. The other person smiles and enjoys the moment. Same rain. Different mind. The difference is perspective. And perspective can either imprison you, or free you. There's a story about a man who lost his horse. His neighbors said, "What terrible luck." The man replied, "Maybe." A few days later, the horse returned with several wild horses. The neighbors said, "What amazing luck." Again, the man replied, "Maybe." Later, his son fell while riding one of the horses and broke his leg. Again the neighbors called it terrible luck. Again the man said, "Maybe." Soon after, soldiers arrived to force young men into war. Because of the broken leg, his son was spared. The Stoic lesson is powerful. You do not fully know whether an event is good or bad in the moment. So stop destroying your peace over temporary situations. Life changes quickly. What hurts today may protect you tomorrow. Another powerful Stoic principle is learning to let go. Most suffering comes from attachment. Attachment to people. Attachment to expectations. Attachment to outcomes. People want life to go exactly as planned. And when reality disagrees, they suffer. But Stoics understood that life is unpredictable. The more tightly you hold on to everything, the more fragile your peace becomes. Picture sand in your hand. Grip it too tightly, and it slips away. Relationships fail. Plans collapse. People change. Opportunities disappear. This is part of life. And accepting this reality creates emotional freedom. There was a man who spent years trying to impress everyone around him. He bought expensive things he couldn't afford. He constantly worried about what people thought. One day he asked an old philosopher, "How do I stop caring so much about people's opinions?" The philosopher replied, "By realizing that most people are too busy worrying about themselves to think about you." That truth changed him forever. People waste years trying to be accepted by strangers. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Respect yourself first. Because the moment your happiness depends on external approval, your peace becomes fragile. A clear mind does not beg for validation. It stands firmly on self-respect. And this leads to another Stoic truth. Protect your energy. Not every argument deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every battle deserves your participation. Strong minds know when to walk away. Weak minds react to everything. Imagine a lion. Does a lion turn around every time a dog barks? No. Because true strength stays calm. There's a story about a philosopher who was publicly insulted by a man trying to provoke him. The crowd expected anger. But the philosopher simply smiled and continued walking. Someone asked, "Why didn't you respond?" He answered, "If a person tries to hand you a gift and you refuse it, to whom does the gift belong?" The person replied, "To the giver." "Exactly," the philosopher said. "I refuse to accept his anger." That is emotional mastery. Most people absorb negativity like a sponge. Stoicism teaches you to filter it instead. Your mind becomes clearer the moment you stop carrying other people's chaos. Another thing that destroys peace is living in the past. So many people replay old mistakes again and again. They relive embarrassing moments. Broken relationships. Missed opportunities. But the Stoics believed the past is beyond your control. You can learn from it, but you cannot live inside it. Imagine driving a car while staring only at the rearview mirror. Eventually, you crash. That's what happens when you stay trapped in old memories. There was an old man who planted a tree every year, even though he knew he might never sit under its shade. Someone asked why he continued. He said, because life moves forward, not backward. That's wisdom. The past is a lesson, not a home. And the future? Most anxiety comes from trying to control a future that doesn't exist yet. People imagine disasters before they happen. They create fear in their own minds. The Stoics called this unnecessary suffering. A warrior once asked a Stoic teacher, "How do I stop fearing tomorrow?" The teacher replied, "You survived yesterday." Simple, but powerful. Most things people worry about never happen. And even when difficulties come, humans are often stronger than they imagined. So instead of fearing the future, prepare your mind for it. A clear mind focuses on the present moment. Right now. This breath. This action. Because the present is the only place where life truly exists. Another Stoic habit that clears the mind is discipline. People think discipline is punishment. The Stoics saw it as freedom. Because without discipline, your emotions control you. Your impulses control you. Your laziness controls you. But discipline gives you command over yourself. Imagine two men. One wakes up early, trains his mind, controls his habits, and stays focused. The other follows every emotion and distraction. Years later, their lives look completely different. Small daily actions shape destiny. There's a story about a sculptor who was asked how he created such beautiful statues. He answered, "I simply remove everything that does not belong." That is what Stoicism does to the mind. It removes unnecessary fear, unnecessary anger, unnecessary distraction, until clarity remains. And clarity is power. One of the hardest Stoic lessons is accepting loneliness during growth. When you start protecting your peace, some people will call you distant. When you stop reacting emotionally, some people will misunderstand you. When you stop chasing approval, some people will feel uncomfortable. But growth often requires separation. A young eagle cannot learn to fly while staying inside the nest forever. Sometimes you must leave comfort behind to discover your strength. There was once a man who constantly surrounded himself with noise because he feared being alone with his thoughts. One day he traveled to the mountains and spent several days in silence. At first, the silence terrified him. Then slowly, he began hearing his own thoughts clearly for the first time. And he realized the chaos he feared was already living inside him. Silence did not create the chaos. It revealed it. That realization transformed his life. Most people run from silence because silence exposes truth. But Stoics embraced silence because truth leads to freedom. Now listen carefully to this part. Your environment affects your mind more than you realize. Negative people create negative thinking. Chaotic environments create chaotic emotions. Stoics were careful about who they allowed close to them. Because energy spreads. If you sit in smoke long enough, your clothes will smell like smoke. The same is true mentally. If you constantly surround yourself with gossip, drama, and negativity, your mind absorbs it. A wise man once said, "Before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?" Imagine how much mental peace people would gain if they followed those three questions. Not every thought needs expression. Not every emotion deserves action. Another powerful Stoic practice is gratitude. A restless mind focuses on what is missing. A peaceful mind appreciates what already exists. There was a poor farmer who complained daily about his life. One day he met a man who had lost his eyesight. The blind man smiled and said, "You are richer than you think." That sentence changed the farmer forever. Sometimes people are so focused on what they lack that they forget the blessings they already possess. Your breath. Your health. Your ability to start again. Stoics practiced gratitude because it cleared the mind of unnecessary dissatisfaction. And here is one of the deepest Stoic truths of all. You will die someday. Most people fear this thought. Stoics used it as motivation. Because remembering death makes you value life differently. Suddenly petty arguments feel meaningless. Fake people become unimportant. Wasting time feels foolish. A Roman Stoic once said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Powerful words. Death is not meant to create fear. It is meant to create urgency. To remind you to live intentionally. To protect your peace. To focus on what matters. There's a story about a king who asked a wise man for a sentence that could keep him humble during success and hopeful during pain. The wise man replied, "This too shall pass. Everything changes. Pain passes. Success passes. Hard times pass. People pass. So do not become arrogant in good times. And do not become hopeless in bad times. Stay balanced." That is the Stoic way. A clear mind understands that life is temporary. And because life is temporary, peace becomes precious. Another reason people lose peace is because they constantly compare themselves to others. Comparison destroys gratitude. Someone always has more money. More success. More beauty. More attention. If you chase peace through comparison, you will never catch it. Imagine running on a treadmill trying to reach the horizon. No matter how fast you run, you never arrive. That's what comparison does. The Stoics focused on self-mastery instead of competition. Become better than yesterday. That is enough. There was a young man obsessed with becoming more successful than everyone around him. Years passed. He became wealthy. But deeply unhappy. One day he met a peaceful old gardener living a simple life. The young man asked, "How are you so calm with so little?" The gardener smiled and replied, "Because I stopped measuring my life against others." That is freedom. Not needing to prove yourself. Not needing applause. Just inner peace. And finally, understand this. A clear mind is built daily. Not once. Daily. Through silence. Through discipline. Through self-control. Through awareness. Through letting go. Peace is not something you find. It is something you practice. Every single day the world will try to steal your attention. People will provoke you. Fear will tempt you. Distractions will pull at you. But Stoicism teaches you to return to yourself. To remain calm in chaos. To stay steady during storms. To think clearly when others panic. Because true power is not loud. True power is calm. So the next time life becomes overwhelming, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. Protect your mind. Protect your energy. Protect your peace. Because a peaceful mind is rare in this world. And rare things are powerful. And the more you study Stoicism, the more you realize that peace is not weakness. It is control. Anyone can shout. Anyone can react emotionally. Anyone can lose their temper. But remaining calm when life tests you, that requires strength. There's a reason storms destroy weak trees while stronger trees remain standing. The strong tree bends without breaking. Stoics trained their minds the same way. Not to avoid hardship, but to become unshakable within it. Imagine two sailors caught in the same violent storm. One panics, screams, and loses control of the ship. The other stays calm, focuses on what he can control, and guides the ship carefully through the waves. The storm was the same. The difference was the mind. That is how life works. You cannot always control the storm. But you can control the person steering the ship. And most people never realize how much their emotions control their decisions. A single insult ruins their day. A single failure destroys their confidence. A single rejection makes them question their worth. But Stoicism teaches you to separate your value from temporary experiences. Failure is not identity. Pain is not identity. Rejection is not identity. They are experiences. Nothing more. There's a story about a famous warrior who lost an important battle. His soldiers expected him to collapse in shame. Instead, he calmly sat beside the fire that night and said, "Today I learned where I was weak." That mindset made him dangerous. Weak people see failure as the end. Strong people see failure as instruction. And that shift alone can clear years of mental suffering. Because many people are haunted not by failure itself, but by the meaning they attach to it. They convince themselves, "I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. My life is ruined." But Stoicism says, observe the event without becoming the event. That means you can experience pain without becoming consumed by it. Think about the sky during a storm. Clouds pass through it. Thunder shakes it. Rain falls from it. But the sky itself remains untouched. Your mind can become like that. Thoughts and emotions may come and go, but you do not have to become trapped inside every feeling. This is why Stoics practiced emotional awareness. Not emotional suppression. There's a difference. Stoicism does not teach you to become cold or emotionless. It teaches you not to become enslaved by emotion. A man once asked a Stoic philosopher, "Should I never feel sadness?" The philosopher replied, "Feel it. But do not drown in it." Powerful words. Because pain is part of life. Loss is part of life. Disappointment is part of life. But suffering multiplies when the mind refuses acceptance. Imagine holding a burning coal in your hand while waiting to throw it at someone else. Who gets burned first? You do. That's what resentment does. Many people destroy their own peace carrying anger toward others. Stoicism teaches forgiveness not because others deserve it, but because your peace matters more. There was once a man betrayed by his closest friend. For years he replayed the betrayal in his mind every night. His anger consumed him. One day an old teacher asked him, "How long will you continue punishing yourself for another person's mistake?" That question changed everything. Sometimes letting go is an act of self-respect. Because carrying hatred only chains your mind to pain. And here is something most people never understand. Your attention is your life. Whatever controls your attention controls your mind. This is why modern life feels mentally exhausting. People wake up and immediately consume noise. Notifications. Arguments. Negative news. Comparison. Distraction. Their mind never has space to breathe. But Stoics guarded their attention carefully. Because where attention goes, energy follows. Imagine watering weeds every day and wondering why flowers never grow. That's what happens when you constantly feed negativity. A clear mind requires intentional focus. Focus on growth. Focus on discipline. Focus on gratitude. Focus on wisdom. Not everything deserves access to your mental space. One Stoic exercise was imagining the loss of things they valued. Not to become negative, but to become grateful. Imagine drinking water after walking through a desert for days. Suddenly, something simple feels precious. Stoics understood that people often appreciate things only after losing them. So they trained themselves to value what they already had. Your family. Your time. Your health. Your opportunities. Because nothing is guaranteed forever. There was a wealthy man who constantly wanted more. More money. More possessions. More status. Yet he was never satisfied. One day he met a monk sitting peacefully beneath a tree with almost nothing. The wealthy man asked, "How can you be so content with so little?" The monk smiled and replied, "How can you be so restless with so much?" That question exposed a truth many people avoid. Peace does not come from having more. It comes from needing less. The Stoics mastered this idea. They understood that endless desire creates endless dissatisfaction. The mind becomes peaceful when it stops constantly chasing what it lacks. Another Stoic principle that clears the mind is accepting criticism wisely. Most people either fear criticism, or become destroyed by it. But criticism can reveal truth. If someone criticizes you unfairly, ignore it. If someone criticizes you accurately, improve from it. Either way, there is no reason to lose peace. A philosopher was once mocked for wearing simple clothes. Instead of becoming embarrassed, he calmly replied, "My character is not measured by fabric." That confidence came from inner stability. People who know themselves are harder to shake. And this is why self-awareness is so important. Many people spend their lives understanding everyone else except themselves. They know celebrity gossip. They know social media trends. They know strangers' opinions. But they do not know their own mind. Stoicism teaches self-examination. Every night, some Stoics would reflect on questions like, "What did I do well today? Where did I lose control? How can I improve tomorrow?" Not to judge themselves harshly, but to grow consciously. A person who reflects grows wiser. A person who never reflects repeats the same mistakes forever. Imagine walking through life in darkness without ever stopping to light a lamp. That is how many people live. Busy. Distracted. Unaware. But awareness changes everything. The moment you become aware of your patterns, you begin reclaiming control. You notice your triggers. Your fears. Your emotional habits. And slowly, your mind becomes less chaotic. There's a story about a young student who asked a Stoic teacher, "How long will it take for me to find peace?" The teacher replied, "If you seek peace, it may take years. If you stop fighting reality, it may begin today." That is one of the deepest lessons in Stoicism. Much suffering comes from arguing with reality. People say, "This shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have left. My life should be different." But reality does not bend to wishes. Peace begins when acceptance begins. Acceptance does not mean weakness. It means clarity. When a boxer steps into the ring, denying the existence of punches will not protect him. He must accept reality to respond wisely. Life works the same way. Accept what exists. Then act with wisdom. This mindset creates resilience. And resilience is becoming rare in modern society. People are taught to avoid discomfort at all costs. But Stoics train themselves through discomfort. Cold weather. Simple living. Discipline. Patience. Because they knew comfort can weaken the mind when it becomes addiction. A sword becomes strong through fire and pressure. Humans are no different. There was once a prince raised in luxury who complained about every inconvenience. One day his father sent him to live briefly among poor villagers. At first, the prince hated it. But slowly he learned gratitude, patience, and resilience. When he returned, he was no longer weak-minded. Sometimes hardship teaches lessons comfort never can. And perhaps one of the greatest Stoic lessons is this. Do not waste your life chasing things that do not matter. At the end of life, people rarely regret not buying more possessions. They regret wasted time. Broken relationships. Fear. Hesitation. Living according to others' expectations. A dying man once told his son, "I spent my whole life climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall." Never forget that. The world constantly pressures people to chase status and appearances. But Stoicism asks a different question. Who are you when nobody is watching? That is character. And character matters more than image. Because image can fool people. Character reveals truth. A clear mind values substance over appearance. It chooses wisdom over ego. Peace over drama. Purpose over attention. And when you truly understand this, your life changes. You stop reacting to everything. You stop proving yourself to everyone. You stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. You become lighter mentally. Calmer emotionally. Stronger internally. And eventually, people notice something different about you. Not because you became louder, but because you became steadier. Your presence feels peaceful. Your reactions become controlled. Your mind becomes harder to disturb. That is the power of Stoicism. Not perfection. Mastery over self. So tonight, before you sleep, sit quietly for a moment. Ask yourself, what thoughts are stealing my peace? What can I no longer control? What emotional weight do I need to release? And then let your mind rest. Because a clear mind is not built through force. It is built through awareness, discipline, and inner stillness. There comes a moment in life when you realize that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your response. Not every person deserves access to your mind. And that realization changes everything. Because most people are emotionally exhausted from fighting battles that never truly mattered. They argue with strangers online. They chase validation from people who secretly dislike them. They try to explain themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. And slowly, their peace disappears. But Stoicism teaches something different. Protect your inner world like a fortress. A king once built enormous walls around his city to protect it from enemies. But a Stoic philosopher told him, "You protect your city better than your own mind." That sentence stayed with the king for years. Because people spend so much time protecting money, reputation, and possessions, while allowing negativity unrestricted access to their thoughts. Think about that carefully. You lock your doors at night. But do you guard your mind the same way? Do you allow toxic opinions to live rent-free in your head? Do you replay painful memories over and over? Do you let fear speak louder than reason? A clear mind requires boundaries. Mental boundaries. Emotional boundaries. Spiritual boundaries. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step away from what disturbs your peace. There was once a man who kept drinking from a poisoned well even though it made him sick every day. People warned him repeatedly. But he refused to stop. Eventually someone asked, "Why do you keep returning to what harms you?" The man answered, "Because it's familiar." That is how many people live. They return to toxic relationships. Negative habits. Self-destructive thinking. Constant chaos. Not because it helps them, but because they became comfortable with suffering. Stoicism teaches you to break that cycle. You do not need to stay attached to what destroys your peace. Sometimes growth requires distance. Distance from negativity. Distance from drama. Distance from constant noise. And most importantly, distance from the version of yourself that keeps suffering unnecessarily. One of the greatest forms of power is emotional detachment. Not coldness. Not lack of love. Clarity. The ability to stay calm without becoming emotionally controlled by every situation. Imagine standing beside a river. Leaves float past continuously. Some are beautiful. Some are ugly. Some move quickly. Some move slowly. But the river keeps flowing. Your thoughts are the same. Not every thought deserves attachment. A Stoic understands this deeply. Just because a negative thought enters your mind does not mean you must believe it. That changes everything. Because many people suffer more from imagination than reality. They imagine failure before trying. Imagine betrayal before trust. Imagine disaster before action. And their fear becomes self-created prison walls. There was a young warrior who feared battle so much that he could barely sleep the night before combat. An older soldier sat beside him and asked, "Has tomorrow arrived yet?" The warrior said no. The soldier smiled. Then why suffer before the suffering comes? That wisdom stayed with him forever. Most anxiety comes from mentally living in futures that do not exist. Stoicism pulls you back to the present. Back to reality. Back to what is actually happening. Not imagined catastrophe. And this is why mindfulness and Stoicism connect so deeply. Both teach awareness. Awareness of thoughts. Awareness of emotions. Awareness of reactions. Because awareness creates choice. Without awareness, people live automatically. Someone insults them, they explode. Something goes wrong, they panic. Life becomes difficult, they collapse emotionally. But awareness creates space between the event and the reaction. And inside that space, power exists. A Stoic once said, "The best revenge is not to become like your enemy." Think about how powerful that is. Many people allow painful experiences to transform them into bitter versions of themselves. They become cruel because they were hurt. They become dishonest because they were betrayed. They lose their kindness because life disappointed them. But Stoicism teaches character over reaction. Do not allow darkness around you to create darkness within you. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. And a peaceful mind loses nothing by remaining calm among chaos. There was a shopkeeper known throughout his village for never losing his temper. One day a man entered his store and insulted him publicly, trying to provoke him. The shopkeeper simply smiled gently. After the man left, someone asked, "How do you stay so calm?" The shopkeeper replied, "If someone throws dirt at the sun still shines." That is emotional maturity. Not every attack deserves emotional surrender. People often reveal themselves through how they treat others. So when someone acts with cruelty, disrespect, or negativity, sometimes the wisest response is observation, not reaction. And here is another truth Stoicism teaches. You become what you repeatedly practice. If you repeatedly practice anger, your mind becomes angry. If you repeatedly practice fear, your mind becomes fearful. If you repeatedly practice gratitude, calmness, and discipline, your mind transforms. Every day your habits shape your identity. A musician becomes skilled through repetition. A fighter becomes strong through training. Peace also requires practice. That means your daily routines matter. What you watch matters. What you listen to matters. Who you spend time with matters. Because your environment slowly programs your mind. Imagine planting a seed in poisoned soil. No matter how powerful the seed is, growth becomes difficult. Your mind is the same. Protect what enters it. One Stoic habit that can completely transform your mental clarity is morning reflection. Before the world floods your mind with noise, sit quietly. Ask yourself, what truly matters today? What is within my control? How do I want to respond to challenges? That simple practice creates intention. Instead of life controlling you, you begin controlling yourself. And at night, reflect again. Not with self-hatred. Not with guilt. With honesty. Where did you lose patience? Where did you overreact? Where did fear control your decisions? Growth begins with honest observation. A man once spent years blaming everyone else for his unhappiness. His family. His job. Society. Luck. Then one day an old mentor handed him a mirror and said, "This is where your power begins." Painful truth. Because self-awareness can feel uncomfortable. But it also creates freedom. The moment you stop blaming the world for everything, you regain the ability to change yourself. And Stoicism is ultimately about self-mastery. Mastery over emotion. Mastery over impulse. Mastery over ego. Not perfection. Progress. Even Stoic philosophers struggled. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote reminders because he understood how easy it is to lose focus in a chaotic world. That's important to remember. Inner peace is not a destination you reach once forever. It is a daily practice. Some days your mind will feel heavy. Some days emotions will feel overwhelming. Some days life will test your patience deeply. But every difficult moment becomes training. Every challenge becomes opportunity. A blacksmith strengthens steel through repeated heat and pressure. Life strengthens character the same way. There's a story about bamboo trees that teaches an important Stoic lesson. For years after planting, bamboo appears not to grow at all. Nothing visible happens above the surface. But underground, deep roots are forming. Then suddenly, within a short time, the bamboo shoots upward rapidly. Human growth is often the same. Sometimes your progress feels invisible. You feel stuck. Discouraged. Impatient. But internally, strength is forming. Wisdom is forming. Discipline is forming. Resilience is forming. Do not quit during the invisible stage of growth. The strongest minds are often built silently. And silence itself is powerful. Notice how people who constantly seek attention are rarely at peace. They need applause. Validation. Recognition. But Stoicism teaches quiet confidence. The mountain does not announce its strength. It simply stands. A calm person does not need to constantly prove themselves. Their energy speaks for them. There was once a swordsman known throughout the land for his incredible skill. Yet he rarely spoke about his abilities. One day a young fighter challenged him publicly, shouting insults and trying to provoke him. The swordsman listened quietly and walked away. The crowd was shocked. Someone asked, "Why didn't you fight him?" The swordsman replied, "A person secure in their strength does not fight every barking dog." That is wisdom. Weak egos crave constant conflict. Strong minds choose peace strategically. And one of the clearest signs of maturity is learning when silence is more powerful than explanation. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Not everyone deserves your defense. Sometimes peace is found in simply letting people misunderstand you. Because trying to control everyone's perception of you is exhausting. People will judge you no matter what. If you succeed, some will envy you. If you fail, some will mock you. If you stay quiet, some will misinterpret you. So why sacrifice your peace trying to satisfy impossible expectations? Stoicism teaches, live according to principles, not applause. There is freedom in that mindset. Freedom from performance. Freedom from pretending. Freedom from emotional dependence on others' opinions. And that freedom creates calmness. Real calmness. Not fake positivity. Not pretending everything is perfect. True inner stability. The kind that remains steady even when life becomes uncertain. Because uncertainty is unavoidable. No one controls tomorrow. No one controls fate completely. And once you truly accept that, fear begins losing power over you. A sailor cannot control the ocean. But he can learn how to navigate waves. Stoicism teaches navigation. How to move through pain without collapsing. How to move through success without arrogance. How to move through uncertainty without panic. That is why Stoicism remains timeless. Because human nature has not changed. People still fear loss. Still seek validation. Still struggle with anger, jealousy, anxiety, and ego. And Stoicism still provides clarity. So if your mind feels heavy right now, remember this. You do not have to solve your entire life tonight. Just take control of this moment. This breath. This decision. This thought. Peace is built one moment at a time. And the more you practice stillness, the more your mind becomes a place of strength instead of chaos. A calm mind changes the way you walk through life. Problems still exist. People still disappoint you. Unexpected pain still arrives. But something inside you becomes different. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop collapsing emotionally over every inconvenience. You stop giving temporary situations permanent power over your peace. And that transformation is rare. Most people spend their entire lives controlled by external events. Their mood depends on the weather. Their confidence depends on compliments. Their peace depends on circumstances. But Stoicism teaches internal stability. The ability to remain grounded no matter what happens outside of you. Imagine a lighthouse during a violent storm. Massive waves crash against it. Powerful winds attack it endlessly. Yet the lighthouse remains standing. Why? Because it was built on strong foundations. Your mind must become the same. Strong foundations are built through discipline, self-awareness, patience, and emotional control. Not through comfort. Comfort can be dangerous when it becomes dependency. A person addicted to comfort becomes fragile. The smallest inconvenience frustrates them. The smallest criticism hurts them. The smallest setback discourages them. But Stoics deliberately train themselves to handle discomfort. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they wanted freedom from fear. There's a story about a philosopher who occasionally slept on the floor despite having a comfortable home. His students were confused. They asked, "Why live this way when you don't have to?" He replied, "So I never become a slave to comfort." Powerful lesson. Because many people are not controlled by chains, they are controlled by attachments. Attachment to luxury. Attachment to approval. Attachment to easy living. And once something controls your emotional state, it owns part of you. Stoicism teaches independence from unnecessary dependence. The less you need to feel complete, the more powerful you become. Think about how much suffering comes from emotional dependency. People say, "I can't be happy unless this person loves me. I can't feel successful unless others admire me. I can't have peace unless life goes perfectly." That mindset creates endless anxiety. Because life will never obey every expectation. People leave. Plans fail. Situations change. And if your peace depends entirely on external things, your peace will always feel unstable. There was once a wealthy businessman who lost nearly everything in a financial collapse. Friends expected him to become completely broken. But surprisingly, he remained calm. Someone asked him, "How are you not destroyed by this?" He answered, "I built my identity on character, not possessions." That is inner strength. Because when your identity is rooted only in external success, failure feels like death. But when your identity is rooted in values, nothing external can fully destroy you. Stoicism constantly returns to this question. What kind of person are you becoming? Not how rich you appear. Not how popular you become. Not how many people praise you. Character. Integrity. Discipline. Wisdom. Calmness. These are the things Stoics valued most. And perhaps one of the hardest Stoic lessons is learning patience. Modern society trains people to expect everything instantly. Instant entertainment. Instant validation. Instant success. But real growth is slow. Nature itself teaches this. A tree does not grow overnight. A river carves stone through patience. The sun rises gradually every morning. Yet humans become frustrated when life takes time. There was a young man desperate for success. Every week he started a new goal. Every month he quit when results came slowly. Finally, he visited an old gardener and complained, "Why is progress taking so long?" The gardener handed him a seed and said, "Would you dig this up every day to check if it's growing?" The young man said no. The gardener smiled. Then stop doing that to your life. Deep lesson. Many people sabotage themselves through impatience. They expect immediate transformation. Immediate healing. Immediate results. But Stoicism teaches consistency over intensity. Small disciplined actions repeated daily shape destiny. And patience creates peace because it removes desperation. A desperate mind becomes restless. A patient mind stays calm. Another important Stoic principle is humility. Ego creates unnecessary suffering. Ego always wants to be right. Wants to win every argument. Wants recognition. Wants superiority. But ego is fragile. The moment someone disagrees, ego feels attacked. That's why arrogant people are often emotionally unstable. Their identity depends too heavily on external validation. A Stoic mind is different. It remains open to learning. Open to correction. Open to growth. There's a story about a scholar famous for his intelligence. One day a child pointed out a simple mistake he had made publicly. The crowd waited for anger. Instead, the scholar thanked the child sincerely. Later someone asked, "Weren't you embarrassed?" The scholar replied, "Why would I fear learning?" That is wisdom without ego. The stronger your ego becomes, the harder peace becomes. Because ego constantly demands protection. But humility creates emotional freedom. You no longer need to prove superiority constantly. You simply focus on growth. And growth requires honesty. Honesty about your weaknesses. Honesty about your habits. Honesty about your mindset. Many people want change without self-examination. But Stoicism forces you to confront yourself truthfully. Not to shame yourself, but to improve consciously. Imagine carrying heavy stones in a backpack while climbing a mountain. Eventually the weight exhausts you. Your mind carries similar burdens. Resentment. Regret. Jealousy. Fear. Pride. Stoicism teaches you to remove unnecessary weight. And the lighter your mind becomes, the clearer your path becomes. One of the most dangerous mental habits is overthinking. Overthinking creates imaginary problems. A person can sit safely in their room while mentally suffering through disasters that do not exist. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed clear action destroys unnecessary anxiety. There was once a man standing at the edge of a cold river, terrified to cross. He spent hours imagining how painful the cold water would feel. Finally he stepped in. And within moments he realized the fear had been worse than reality itself. That's life for many people. Fear grows larger in imagination. Action shrinks it. So if something must be done, do it calmly. Do it courageously. Do it without feeding endless mental drama. A Stoic focuses on response instead of panic. And here is another truth most people ignore. You cannot think your way into peace while living against your values. If your actions constantly contradict your conscience, your mind becomes restless. That's why integrity matters. When your words, actions, and values align, inner conflict decreases. Peace increases. A man once lied repeatedly to maintain a false image of success. Over time, anxiety consumed him because he constantly feared exposure. Finally he admitted the truth and simplified his life. For the first time in years, he slept peacefully. Truth creates clarity. Pretending creates stress. And many people today are exhausted because they are performing instead of living authentically. Stoicism encourages simplicity. Simple thoughts. Simple habits. Simple values. Not because ambition is wrong, but because complexity often creates mental chaos. A peaceful life is not necessarily an easy life. It is a focused life. A life aligned with purpose instead of distraction. And purpose gives suffering meaning. Without meaning, even small struggles feel unbearable. But with meaning, humans can endure incredible difficulty. There was once an old craftsman who worked quietly every day building beautiful furniture by hand. Someone asked him why he worked with such care even on pieces most people would barely notice. He replied, "Because excellence is part of who I am, not who is watching." That is Stoic character. Doing what is right even when nobody applauds. Remaining disciplined even when motivation disappears. Remaining kind even after experiencing cruelty. Remaining calm even when surrounded by chaos. And over time, these choices shape identity. Not instantly. Gradually. Like water shaping stone. Never underestimate small daily decisions. Every reaction matters. Every habit matters. Every thought repeated consistently matters. You become what you practice. So practice calmness. Practice patience. Practice discipline. Practice gratitude. Practice silence. And slowly your mind becomes stronger than your emotions instead of controlled by them. There's a reason diamonds are created under pressure. Pressure reveals strength. And perhaps the deepest Stoic realization is this. Life was never meant to be controlled completely. It was meant to be experienced wisely. The more you try to force certainty onto life, the more anxiety you create. But when you accept uncertainty with courage, peace enters your mind. A traveler once asked an old monk, "What is the secret to peace?" The monk replied, "I stopped demanding that life happen according to my preferences." Simple. But life-changing. Many people are fighting reality every day. Fighting aging. Fighting change. Fighting uncertainty. Fighting the past. And the constant resistance exhausts them mentally. Stoicism teaches flow instead of resistance. Not passive surrender. Wise acceptance. Accept what exists. Control what you can. Release what you cannot. That mindset alone can transform your entire life. So when your mind becomes overwhelmed, return to simplicity. Breathe deeply. Slow down. Observe your thoughts without panic. Remind yourself, this moment will pass. This emotion will pass. This difficulty will pass. And you are stronger than you think. If this video speaks to your soul, subscribe to the channel for more Stoic wisdom and mindset videos that strengthen your mind and transform your life. Share this with someone who needs inner peace right now. And remember, the person who masters their mind, masters their life.